Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday to all of you. Today is Thursday, November 19th. It is great to be with you. I know it's not Monday, my typical day of the week with you. Magrey Thursday does not quite roll off the tongue quite as well as Magrey Monday, but nevertheless, it is great to be here with you today. I do hope that you had a chance to join us last Monday for a very special Facebook devotional. Very grateful for the Dougherty family for leading us in that time. Michael and Hannah and Leo and Lily shared with us the concept and the beauty of an Advent candle wreath as an invitation to all of you to make your own Advent wreath in the upcoming week or so as we begin the Advent season on November 29th. I'm looking forward to making mine here at home, and perhaps I'll be able to show it to you next Monday when I'm back in my regular slot with you. But I hope that you'll consider making one as we join together, not just on Sundays during the Advent season, but every day. We've got some really special things lined up for these Facebook devotionals during the days of Advent, and it will be very special for you to be able to light those candles along with all of us as we make this journey together toward Christmas. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for Christmas. I am more eager for Christmas this year than I have been in recent years. In fact, I will admit that the girls and I put up the Christmas tree here at the parsonage the first week in November. So almost 3 weeks ago, we put up the Christmas tree. It's the earliest we have ever put up a Christmas tree. We were eager to bring some light and some joy into our lives, and so we felt like a Christmas tree would be a helpful way to do that. Maybe you all have done the same and started your Christmas decorating. I think subconsciously what's happening is we feel like if we can move Christmas along, we can go ahead and get this year over with sooner rather than later. I was joking with the girls that, in about a week or so, we'll go ahead and celebrate New Year's Eve too. Isn't that the way time works? I know we're all eager to get to 2021, but nevertheless, I hope that you'll join us for what will be a beautiful Advent season, starting November 29th. So I want to share with you a little bit from our daily readings from the Bible Project. In a moment, I'm going to read for you a portion of the reading for tomorrow from the book of Galatians. But to preface that, I want to share with you a really profound concept that someone taught me many years ago that has been very helpful for me in understanding aspects of my life, aspects of leadership, aspects of the world that help me get a good understanding of how things work and the potential to do good. The model goes like this: that whenever a system goes from simple to complex, that system increases its capacity to do good, but also increases an equal capacity to cause harm. I'll say that one more time. Whenever a system goes from simple to complex, it increases its capacity to do good, but also increases its potential to cause harm. You can pull examples from this in just about every aspect of life. Well, let's start from the concept of relationships, going from a simple relationship of being single to a more complex relationship of being married with children. For those of you who are married with children, you remember that when you were single, life was fairly simple for you, not very complicated. But then when you got married and had children, all of a sudden, relationships became much more complicated, much more complex, which means that with that increase in complexity, you had greater capacity to experience great joy and beauty and harmony, but that also increased the capacity for harm, for chaos, conflict, confusion. And there may be days that you long for your childhood when you were single, when you had a lot fewer things to worry about and stress about back when you were a child, back when you were single. But you know that if you were to go back there, you would miss out on all of the incredible goodness and beauty and joy that complexity has now brought you. I think about it in terms of churches. My very first church that I served oh gosh, over 25 years ago, was a much smaller church than the one that I'm serving now. A church where we had 35 people in worship every Sunday, only about 120 members total. And it was a much simpler system. That's an understatement. A much simpler system than the one that we have now here at Hyde Park, which means that it was a lot less stressful. I was the only staff person. So staff meetings were a breeze. There was no interpersonal conflict whatsoever among staff because it was just me in the mirror, basically. And it was a wonderful, loving, tight, close-knit congregation. There were very few divisions. Everybody was basically, it was basically only 3 families that constituted the church. But now, and I would say that little church had kind of a ceiling for the kind of profound impact that it could make in its community and in the world. But now, here at Hyde Park, it is a much more complex system. It's a hyperspeed jump from simplicity to complexity with here at Hyde Park, which means that there is such an incredibly high ceiling. Sky's the limit for the kind of impact that we can make, the good, the harmony, the beauty that we could offer both Tampa and the world as a much more complicated system. And the more complicated that we've become over the years, the higher the potential for impact. But that also brings with it a greater increased equal capacity for missional drift, for confusion, for miscommunication, perhaps even staff drama, volunteer drama, conflict, all of those things that come with going from simplicity to complexity. The last example that comes to mind is social media. As a digital immigrant, like many Gen Xers, like myself, we know that there was a time before social media. And we might think of that time as a simpler time. When I was a teenager, I didn't even have a cell phone, let alone a smartphone, let alone a computer. And so times were much simpler back then. And now we have this kind of digital interconnectivity that has dramatically increased the complexity of our world, which means, and I think you know now where I'm going with this, we have such increased capacity for creating goodness and beauty, connection with each other, and doing good things because of our connection through social media. But there is also equally increased capacity for causing harm. For deepening our divisions with one another, for inflaming our conflict and our argument. And the thing is, we're never going back. We're never going back to a simpler state. As much as we might long for days in the past when things were much simpler, we can't go back to those days. So the only thing we can do now, when we go from a simple to a complex system, is do our very best to intentionally bend that capacity toward goodness rather than toward harm. And that works in our relationships. That works certainly here in the church. That works in social media. And it works in every single system that we are a part of today, where we have equal capacity to cause goodness or harm, to do our best to bend that capacity toward goodness. And that's where Paul comes in. When he's talking to the Galatian church, he is recognizing that all of the churches that he has planted have gone from just a fledgling bunch of Christians, new followers of Jesus, to now growing, increased populations of followers of Jesus that are becoming more complex. That these communities where he's planting these churches are filled with diverse kinds of people. And even within the church itself, it has not only Gentile Christians, but Christians who were formerly Jews. And that kind of cultural complexity is being added to the mix here. Gone from a simple system of just a few Christians to now a complex body of Christ, which means that these churches now have an increased capacity for goodness, but an equal increased capacity for causing harm. And that's where this reading comes in from Galatians chapter 5 today. What is it that Paul says to the Galatians that they need to observe in order to bend their energies toward goodness rather than towards harm? It is one of the most famous passages in all of the New Testament, Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 26. It's the fruit of the Spirit passage. By contrast, Paul says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also be guided by the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, competing against one another, envying one another. And he goes on in the rest of the letter to talk about specific ways to live by the Spirit with one another. I think what Paul is basically saying is that as you grow in your relationships, and as every system that you're a part of, whether it be a church or a neighborhood or a country, becomes more complicated, more complex, more diverse, we each have to do our part to be intentional about bending that capacity toward goodness. And the way to do that is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. I hope you'll think about this list in terms of every aspect of your life. If you're in a marriage that is under significant strain because of this pandemic, ask yourself, how can I embody the fruit of the Spirit, knowing that I can't control the other person and I can't allow myself to be controlled by the other person. All I can control is myself. And to do my part to bend the capacity of this relationship toward goodness. If you're in a family that is in conflict, if you're in a company that is undergoing division, if we're in a country, which we are, that is undergoing significant division and polarization, what can each of us do to do our part to contribute to the creation of beauty and goodness and love and harmony in the world, rather than bending it the other way and causing what we all know can be significant harm and division done to us? I hope that's helpful for you. I hope that will encourage you to do an inventory in your mind of the kinds of relationships that you have in your life, and to be encouraged that you can do something to help build the kingdom in your life. Again, that's Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 26. So, I hope that you'll join us this Sunday for our Commitment Sunday, a joyous day of celebration, as we also observe the last Sunday of the Christian year. It's also Christ the King Sunday, and it's the last Sunday before the Advent season. And I know many of you are thinking about what next week will hold for you, what your Thanksgiving plans are, and in many cases, the kinds of alterations you'll need to make to your Thanksgiving plans because of COVID. Whatever you choose to do next week, my prayer for you is that you'll be safe and healthy, that you will receive it as a time of great joy, rest, and of course, Thanksgiving. And I look forward to joining you again at our regular scheduled time next Monday. That will be November 23rd, I believe. So I hope you're doing well. Be blessed. Remember that you are loved, and have a great rest of the week.